Oh, hello. I didn't see you come in there. I'm Daniel Stern, the Code Whisperer, and today we're going to make Connect 4 the game. Now, you may not know this about me, but I just love video games. I spend almost all my free time playing them, and though we don't have enough time to make a video game now, I thought we'd make a recreation of a favorite board game. Now, if you don't know what Connect 4 is, let's find out together. Let's look it up. Can we get an original commercial? Yeah, all right, let's watch this commercial together. Go for the fun. Yes, we're watching this whole thing. Connect 4. Connect 4. All right, so now that we've thoroughly spent that minute of our lives usefully, let's make Connect 4 in JavaScript. Doop doop doop. Once again, folks, I gotta apologize for my webcam. It's really been acting up. We're gonna get a new webcam going within the next few days, so I'm sorry about all that. So as we saw, the game of Connect 4 is played on a grid of arbitrary size, but we're going to make our grid 7 by 5. So let's start by representing that in JavaScript form. Say const grid is equal to, and let's see, I have no idea how we're going to do this. Let's try making an array. And then in that array, we'll make another array. And it will just have 7 empty objects in it, which is a row. And we'll repeat this, let's say 5 times. So now this actually looks like a Connect 4 board. I actually don't know if this construct is going to be useful, but at least it helps us visualize what's going on here. So when we call render, we're going to have it kind of just render out the grid there onto the HTML. So let's make a div tag and call it board. And we'll make a render function in our JavaScript. So when we call render, we'll make a string that's going to represent our board. We'll just call it doc. And then we'll loop through the grid twice. For var row in grid. I'll actually make this a for loop so we get access to the index as well. Where I is equal to 0, I is less than grid.length, I plus plus. And then we'll make the row equal to grid I. And we'll do another for loop inside, so we're looping over each one of the individual squares. J is less than row.length, J plus plus. And let's just pre-populate some of these squares here. So let's make this one equal color red for now. So how are we going to do this? I guess we'll do an SVG to kind of render this all out nicely. So inside board, I'll put an SVG inside, and I'll make the ID, just call that SVG. Now here in render, we'll get a reference to the SVG. We'll say const SVG equals get document dot get element by ID SVG. And so for each line here, we'll say doc dot append, or actually, I don't really like the syntax. Let's say doc equals doc plus and a new string. And we'll say, should we say a circle? Yeah, let's start by representing the circles themselves, then we'll do the grid later. And what is that? Circle? Sure. Fill equals black. R equals, we'll just give it a small radius of, let's say, 1. And here's the interesting part. We're going to make X and Y a property of I and J, so each one will show up in the correct space. So we'll say X is equal to J pixels and Y is equal to I pixels. And then we'll call render. Is this going to work? I don't think so, but let's find out. Bomb. Nothing's happening. That's not good. Assignment to constant variable. Oh, that's tricky. So doc should be a let. Is it rendering? Let's put a console here. All right, so it's erroring, but it's not getting an error. What's going on there? All right, we have to make the SVG's inner HTML match up. That makes sense. Just rearrange these. So here at the end, we'll say svg.innerHTML equals doc. So we're still not seeing anything. That's confusing. Let's look at the rendered code for our SVG. Nothing being appended. That's tricky. Let's put a debugger here in this inner loop, see what's going on. So what's going on here? I is equal to 0, j is equal to 0, grid is equal to that, grid I is equal to that, that's GIRD. Let's jump ahead once. So it's just repeating this, but every time it should update the doc. Now what does the doc say here? Right, the doc's got its own thing going, but we didn't close the circle tag, so that's a problem. How do I get out of this debugging loop? I don't want to debug anymore. Just play through to the end. So that's all looking good. Let's just close the circle tag. Okay, yeah, that definitely is a big problem. Now it's rendering again. We're still not seeing anything. Let's write a console here. Writing inner HTML for sure. And so the SVG should have some inner HTML going. Yes, it does. Perfect. So what's the problem here? Does it need pixels after R? Yeah, I think so. We're seeing something tiny here. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. Let's update our SVG code. We'll say R is equal to 10 pixels. Or no, bigger than that, 30 pixels. And X is going to be, let's put little soft quotes around these we're writing. That's looking good. So X is going to be equal to $J times, I don't even know, 30 pixels, and X is equal to I times 30 pixels. And we'll render that. Now what's going on? Okay, that should be CX, CY, because SVG is fair and predictable. Good, so that's kind of looking like our board. Now we just got to make this way bigger. So we'll say 70 and 70. That's good, so it's all looking distinct. Now we'll just add some CSS. For SVG, we'll make width 100%. Is that going to work? No. Let's say 1,000 pixels. Height 1,000 pixels. And we'll just make the position absolute. And we'll position it. We just got to give it some space from the left of the screen there. I don't even know. Left 50 pixels. Top 50 pixels. And what's going on here? They're sort of cut off there in the corner. So let's just make both these positions. We'll just offset them by 20 pixels. Or that's not enough. Let's say 50. So there you go. We got a tic-tac-toe board going. That's not a bad start. But it's not actually a game. It's just showing up. Still, pretty good job. Let's see how much farther we can get it today. So we got the grid, and if you're wondering how my headphones magically appeared on my head, yes, I did pause it, but don't worry, I did not do any coding without you. So we will continue our coding adventure. Let's make these circles represent what color they are. So if they have nothing in them, they'll be gray, and then they can either be red or black depending on what square is in them. So let's start by making this circle color fill gray. That's looking good. Now actually we're going to get the contents of the square by accessing the grid at coordinates I, j. So here, we'll say const. Let's call it just square, I guess. Doesn't really make a lot of sense, but what's wrong with that? Const square equals grid I, j. And we'll say, oh, sorry, just I got a cat here, needs to be let out. And we'll say const color equals square dot color if there is anything in there, or gray. And it needs some sort of default value here for square. So we'll say square and square dot color, or gray. And we'll make the fill equal to color. So that's not right. I'm expecting this one to be red. What is going on there? Let's put a log here. So it's going to log all the squares for us here at the bottom. Wow, the word square kind of loses all meanings when you get to that point. Oh, there's the problem. It's not grid I, comma, j. That didn't make any sense. That should be an error. Thank you for pointing that out, audience. I know you guys are helping me out. Grid IJ, and there it goes. So the right one is red, if you can see it there on my screen with me. This is looking good. So now this is an accurate representation of what's going on in the board. We now have a pretty robust board state and a representation of it. So that's all looking really good. I'm pretty happy with this. Let's next make it so that you can click and the pieces will fall in where they should. So for each one of these little squares, we need to add a click listener. How do you even do that? Let's look it up. SVG element, add click listener. It says here it just works like normal. By using this on-click fidgety thing. So for each one of these circles, we'll add an on-click, all small. And in little quotes, we'll say click square, and we'll pass it I and J. And we'll add a function here to the window. Console.log, you clicked square X, Y. Looking good to me. And what do we still have this console here? Let's get rid of this console log and this console log. Those aren't helping us anymore. And this console log, don't need it. Clear up this thing and let's see if it works. Yes, it works. Is that all accurate? Square 0, 0, square 4, 6. That's good. So we've got all our squares clickable. I like it. All right, let's breathe. All right, now what we want to do is whenever someone clicks on a circle, we're going to find the lowest unoccupied square on that column, and we're going to put the appropriately colored piece in there. So we'll add a variable, const current color. Actually, that should be a let, because we're going to change it. Let current color equal red. So when you click the square, we're going to loop through all the columns, then all the rows. We're going to figure out what's going on. So let's just copy these 4 loops here. Or maybe we should loop backwards from number 7. This is pretty confusing. So we'll say var target place, and we'll make that equal to the x element of that row. So target place equals row x. And now we'll just log what's going on in target place. And the row number. Good. Zero, 1, 2. 3. That's weird because we should be seeing this one when we click square 0, 3. Let's put a debugger here. So what row do we got going on here? It's an empty row. What's X? 4. Row X is nothing, so that should all trigger nothings. The last one is color black. Why? Because it's going through all the rows? Are we mixing up our X's and Y's? Let's mix these J and I up on click square. I think that's my problem. It's a big mystery. Zero, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2. Is this even working? Let's log what we got going on. Good. So now we're getting the proper log. This is showing us that it's empty, 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 then red, then empty, 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 then black. So it's going from the top down. Could we make it go from the bottom up? Var I equals grid dot length minus 1. I is equal to or greater than 0. And I minus minus. So now when we run this, we should see red, the color as the first thing we click. Yes, there we go. It's at the top. Color red, color black. So now it's going from the bottom up, and we can just see the first one that's empty. We can put the appropriate colored square in there. So we'll say if no target place we'll say row X equals, and the color will be the current color. And we'll return. And we'll call render. So I will say if no target place dot color, because there is a target place, it's just sort of empty. It's not really doing very much of a thing. Ho ho, look at that go. So we're stacking red squares. That is actually amazing. I'm amazed we got any functionality out of this. This is really cool. So we're getting all these red squares, and we need a way to restart it. So how are we going to restart it? Can we just save it when resaving it started? I guess we can just change anything in the code, and it'll just restart on its own. Great, we'll put a button to restart it later. All right, we're actually almost done, folks. I'm really impressed at how quickly I'm able to code when I'm coding along with you. I feel like I just gotta be the best coder I can, you know? So let's erase this console log and clear our console. And step away from the computer and stretch. Get a bit of water if you're thirsty. And let's do it. So now we want to alternate them so that if it was red, the next color that's going to be clicked is black. Simple, right? After we do this, we'll just say current color equals, current color is equal to red, question mark, then make it black or make it red. And that should give us an alternating color pattern. Bingo. Connect for. So that's good. Now let's see if we can get it to actually figure out if 4 are in a row. That's going to be tough. I've had some trouble with that before. So how can we do that? This is going to take all our skill. Let's clean up this code, get rid of all the unwanted consoles, and make this CSS and HTML small so we have more space. Connect for. It's going to be fun, fun for all. Funny fun. It's looking pretty good, actually. Cleaning up the code, lots of console logs. I find the more complicated a code base is, the more console logs you'll have to clean up. They're just part of the job. Thinking with my mind. All right, so once you click square, right after you call render, you're going to call this other function called calculate winners. And we'll define it. Is there a winner? So how are we going to do this? I guess we'll go to every square one by one and see if any 3 squares adjacent to it are real. Or do we want to do that? Or we can kind of just look at them independently. But if we did the square strategy, then we'd have more details over where the winning piece is. So since it's connect 4, any ones that are flat or diagonal are going to have to go through this middle row. The only ones that don't have to go through the middle row are vertical ones. So let's do that separately. So first we'll find verticals. And so we'll loop through all the grid. Let's get these 2 for loops again and copy those in. That might be useful. We'll say var square equals grid ij. Now we're only going to run this next block if the square exists and it has a color. So for each square, if the square's number is 0 or 1, if it's on the top 2, let's look at the 4 below it and see if they all match. J equals 0 or J equals 1, if grid I j plus 1 dot color equals square dot color and the next one after that, and the next one after that, then we know a color has 1. Is that going to work? Man, that works. That's just crazy. Well, let's mix that up around. That should be I plus 1, I plus 2, I plus 3, and then no j's. Guess I should have mowed those x and y to begin with. That would have been pretty handy. And we'll put a return there. Now what's going to happen here? Is this going to work? So that works. So that's detecting the 4 going straight down. So if we make 4 blacks here. Okay, not quite. Let's try again. Color black wins. So we have those. Now let's do a check for horizontals. So we'll sort of do the same thing here. We'll just say for j, and if it's any of these first 4, check if the 3 after it are all the same color. So we'll say if j equals 0, or j equals 1, or j equals 2, or j equals 3. And yes, there is more efficient ways of doing this. But hey, you know, it just kind of works, right? So we'll copy this down. If grid I plus 1, so now I'll just change these, get rid of all but the first for now. So I j plus 1, and not quite. And plus 2, and plus 3, then we should also have a winner. Let's see if that works. Let's line up 4 reds here. That doesn't seem quite right. Let's restart. And now it's not restarting. That's kind of weird. I want this memory state to go away. That's weird. Let's just make a button that restarts it. I'll just make the restart function something like this. Get rid of these defaults. So inside restart, we'll say grid equals this. We'll just populate it with empties, and we'll make grid start out as an empty array. Then right at the beginning here, we'll call restart. Right before render. Let's see, can we put the button above? Is it just frozen? Oh, there's an error, so it's not rendering. That's why it wasn't working. Bingo. Well, we have our restart button anyways, so let's see what happens. Red, black, red, black, red, black, red. Great. So we got those working. Now we can just restart it. And of course, nothing happens because this should be capital. Who even knows? Is it even calling restart? I'll make this window.restart just in case it's using a closure there for us. Oh yeah, and then it has to call render at the end of restart. And now we don't need this render here that happens at the beginning because it will happen on its own. And bingo. So we have a game of Connect 4 with horizontals and verticals. So adding the diagonals is going to be the hardest part, but basically we know if it's in these top two rows, if the next three that are to the side and down one to the right, if it's in the first four, or to the left, if it's in the second floor, then you got to connect 4. The logic's kind of circular, but let's give it a try anyways. So we'll say if I is equal to 0 or I is equal to 1, then we'll say if j is any of the first 4, j is equal to 1 or j is equal to 2 or j is equal to 3 or one of these first 4. So we'll say if, then we'll take one of these, but we'll have a +1 for both I and j. And +2 and +3. Then it's another rin. We'll just fix this up later. So it actually looks pretty good. Is it going to work? It's kind of roundabout to test it, so let's just give it a shot. Hope it works. Not quite. Tough to actually make the Connect 4. Hey, it worked. We got a little error because we typed this wrong, but it checked right. I'm amazed that worked. I did not think that was going to work. So now we just have to do it the other way, but backwards. So if j is equal to 3, or j is equal to 4, or it's equal to 5, or it's equal to 6, if it's in any of these later rows, we'll just use we'll use +1 for y, but -1 for x. It should be I plus 1, j minus 1. And that should probably work. I don't even want to do this because I'm sure something will go wrong, but let's test it out anyways. Nice. Well, we got our correct thing. Wow, we're just awesome today. So let's finish this up now. Let's add an h1 to indicate who won. h1 ID equals who won. And we'll add a method here called a color wins. And we'll just make document.get element by ID who won dot inner HTML equals color wins. Then we'll just replace this with a color wins. And replace this. We still want the return though, so it doesn't keep going. Quite a bit of repetition, but that's what you gotta do sometimes. And finally, let's add a flag to indicate if the game is still being played. Game in play. We'll make it false by default. Whenever you call restart, it'll be true. And we'll say if the game isn't in play, then any attempt to click the square won't work. So once the game's over, it's over. And that's it. Connect 4 should be ready. Not bad, and we just got to change this game in play flag when a color wins. We did it, folks. Connect 4, all in the browser. Let's play a game. Wow, folks, that's just outstanding. I'd like to thank you for joining us today for today's Code Along at Home. I hope you enjoyed it and you learned a lot. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and also visit the link below for some cool offers.